started. Welcome to Pre-Health Shadowing's 14th virtual shadowing session. I am very honored to welcome to today our guest speaker, Dr. Andre Pinesett, who is currently an anesthesiologist down in SoCal at San Diego. So welcome, Dr. Pinesett.
Thank you. Oh, should I start talking? Is that my cue?
The floor is yours.
All right, what is up, guys? Good evening. I apologize. Well, I'm a little late today. You guys might have seen on Instagram earlier today. I actually got off work early today. It's very exciting. My operating room closed early. I rushed home, and my daughter was in my beanbag, and it was all fun and games. And then my son decided it'd be fun to play tug of war with the tape measure and sliced my daughter's hand or finger practically off. So we went to urgent care so they could stitch her up and glue her finger back on. So that was very exciting. My 3-year-old like screaming, "Oh!" And I'm like, "Oh, the blood is everywhere. What's going on?" So that's why I'm late. I'm Dr. Pinesett, as was just said. Thank you guys for having me. This is kind of cool. Give people an opportunity to talk with and engage with professionals. I was going to do a presentation tonight, but then I thought, why do a presentation? You guys want to interact, right? Like you guys can hear people talk at you all the time. So I thought it'd be cool. We can have a conversation. I'm very casual. I go by Dr. P, Dr. Pinesett either way. What my students call me, but this should be a casual conversation. Ask questions, like ask things that you're not supposed to ask on things like, listen, I'm really worried about medicine in the long hours because I don't really want to work long hours. Tell me about that. And I'll give you the truth about it. I won't be like judging you. Duhan, I see you. What's up? So this is supposed to be like a really informal thing. If you guys have never met me, really quick an intro. Dr. Andre Pinesett. I went to UC Irvine way back in the day. I'm an anteater, ferocious anteater, the best UC campus, period. And I graduated there, my BS in biochemistry and biology. I also minored in business management at UC Irvine. And then I went on and got my master's at UCLA. I liked business so much during undergrad. I took so many classes. I actually took enough classes to have a major in business, but UC Irvine didn't offer it at the time. They actually started the year after I left. And so I wanted to learn more about business. So I went on to UCLA where I got my master's in public health, but my focus was in health services management. And then I altered that degree even more to make it even more businessy. And then I finished that at UCLA and I went on to Stanford Medical School, graduated Stanford Medical School. After Stanford, I went to UC San Diego, which is a cool UC. It's not UCI, but it works, right?
I think you're muted, Dr. Pinesett.
Who muted me? Was I talking too much and someone muted me? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Where did I cut off? What part of my journey? Did you hear about when I skinned my knee as a child? Did you hear that part or did it cut out?
No.
I'm joking, guys. What was the last thing you guys heard?
From Stanford.
Okay, graduated from Stanford. Went to UCSD and I finished my anesthesia residency at UCSD. So I am trained in anesthesia. And then I stayed on as faculty at UCSD. So I'm a faculty member at UCSD. I do most of my practicing actually not on the UCSD campus, but actually at the Veterans Administration, the VA healthcare center across the street in La Jolla, California. So I get to work with residents and medical students and all that kind of good stuff. I do that part-time. And I elected to do that part-time because my real thing I like to do is work with students, help students be better, and help students kind of make the journey that I made. Because I was told way back when that it was impossible for me to become a doctor. It was impossible for me to graduate in the sciences from college. And I basically wanted to prove that person wrong. And then I wanted to be someone who could show other people that they could also do it. And not only just say, hey, look at me, but actually show people tangibly, here's how you do it step by step to get it done. And so that's why I spend most of my time, my cult of greatness. I see some of my members here right now, but I spend a lot of time with my students hanging out and just helping them kind of make that same journey. So that's really my passion. So I'm the study doc on social media. If you guys don't follow me at the study doc. And I have a pretty substantial YouTube channel and a new podcast is coming. I have 2 podcasts currently, and I have another podcast that's starting next week. Actually, it's gonna be a live podcast we're gonna be filming starting next week. So all exciting stuff. So that's me in a nutshell. Anesthesia. And I'm a student mentor for forever. Was that a quick run through of my journey? I feel like people give like these long-winded intros. Like 1998 to 1990, I was going through. So that's me, guys. This session's for you guys. I know what it is to be a doctor. So, however you guys want to run this, but I'm here to answer whatever question you guys have. You ask a question, I'll talk for 15 minutes. You ask a question, I'll talk for 15 minutes, and then we'll do it that way. But what do you guys want to know about anesthesia and about me and about life?
So for our students, go ahead and utilize the raise hand function, and we will call on you if you want to orally ask your question to our guest speaker. If not, feel free to drop your question in the chat, and one of our hosts will do that for you. All right, I see we have our first hand raised. Go ahead. Please excuse me if I pronounce this wrong. Gail?
Yeah, it's Gail or Gael. Hi, Dr. P. So my question was, I'm like beginning to look at like what schools I want to go to, like how they are in terms of like out of state acceptance rates and stuff. I was just wondering, like, how do you go about like choosing a school? And yeah, just like that process of choosing a school and like what's going to be the best fit, especially in these times when you can't really go visit the school. And then I also have another question, if that's okay.
Wow, two-part question to start us off. Goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then the second question is, I'm kind of like lacking in shadowing experience right now. And so I was wondering, like, especially during these times, like what's the best way of reaching out and getting into the operating room? And yeah.
Yeah, so I'll answer your second question first because that's easier. So people can grab the question. The question is, first is, hey, it's COVID and they won't let me in the hospital. So how do I break into the hospital and get some shadowing experience? One. The second question is, hey, I can't go visit schools because COVID got everything shut down. And I want to figure out, what school should I go to for medical school, right? We're talking about? Okay, so not undergrad, okay, medical school. Okay, so wrapping up your stuff, going to medical school. So the first question is don't shadow right now. So this is unequivocally the answer. Do not go into a hospital right now unless somebody's paying you. Because there's a lot of people who are getting paid to be at the hospital who don't want to be there. There's no reason, forget all the political hype and whatever. COVID is real, it's legit. And like to do a brief aside on COVID, what makes COVID interesting and amazing? You guys are going to be reading about COVID as you guys go to medical school. COVID is going to be something that is incredible. COVID-19 in particular, right? Because there's a lot of COVIDs, but COVID-19 in particular is going to be an amazing case study. It's going to be incredible because it's turned a lot of what we think about in terms of virology even further on its head and pushed things beyond what we thought. And if you guys don't know already, COVID-19, everyone thinks of it's like a cold, right? It's like a lung disease. It's actually not a lung disease. It's a vascular disease, right? So the vessels of the body is what it attacks, okay? And so that makes it unique, right? Because if you guys know anyone who has all those weird autoimmune diseases, right? Any of the weird autoimmune diseases, any of the vasculitises, anything like that, when you hear those things, those are scary. It's like sepsis, even if it's in the bloodstream or in the vessels, is really hard to control because we have vessels where? Everywhere. So if you are a disease, a virus that can affect vessels, you have free reign. You can run all over causing mischief, which is why we see so many symptoms. And so the problem with COVID and it being a vascular disease is it is very difficult to control. It's like a septic patient, but it's viral. And so the problem with that is that when people are actually sick with COVID, there's very little we can do. That's the reality. Like I'm an anesthesiologist, right? So we'll talk about what anesthesia is, but part of my job as an anesthesiologist is critical care. So when we have a COVID intubation, we do the intubating, right? Don't let the hype fool you, right? Anesthesia, in Grey's Anatomy, I know some stuff happens and the surgeon runs in. Stuff happens in reality and the surgeon runs away. That's the truth. Honest to goodness truth. Like, oh my gosh, the patient's crashing. Here, call the surgeon. That's not what happens. They call anesthesia. So when this happens with COVID, we go in and we intubate these patients. But unlike flu, where someone has flu or pneumonia, or they even have lung cancer, we can put a tube in, pull the cancer out, put a tube in, let the flu pass, and their lungs get better. But with COVID, we actually can't even ventilate a lot of these patients because it's a vascular disease. Their lungs kind of turn almost like mush, and we can do nothing to ventilate them. So we're like helpless. So my long-winded answer to your question about shadowing is, why the heck would you want to go expose yourself to COVID unnecessarily? So don't go to a hospital unless you absolutely have to. My daughter right now, right? She cut her hand off and wants like, oh, we gotta go to the children's hospital. I'm like, no, we're gonna go to urgent care because it's chill. They keep everybody out in the car. We don't get COVID exposure. We'll go in, they'll stitch it up. It'll be fine. Put some glue on that bad boy and we'll go home. So don't go to the hospital. With that being said, what's the whole purpose of shadowing, right? So one of the things that I always talk about in getting to medical school is a lot of people think pre-med sucks. A lot of people think school sucks. And the reason they think that is because they live it like a clone, right? They have no purpose, right? And no passion in anything they do. And so when you talk about the purpose of shadowing, why do you go to a hospital to shadow? You go, right? Because what? What's the purpose of shadowing, Gail? Is it Gail? It's Gail, right?
Yeah, it's Gail or Gael.
Gael.
Whichever
Oh,
one
I
you
like
could
that. Say Gael, man, for the ladies. Gael
Okay.
ladies.
But
Gael.
yeah, the
Okay.
purpose of shadowing is just to like see the day-to-day life of like a specialty you're interested in, and then like if this is the right path for you, I guess that's what I would say.
Right. It's about getting to know a physician or like a medical professional in a field, right? You want to see, okay, wait a minute, is this a career I want to be in, right? And then the second part of that, that's the first part for you, is the exposure to say, ooh, do I like this field? What is their day-to-day life? What is this person's personality like? Does it fit me? Or are they like an uber nerdy person and I'm not an uber nerdy person? Or are they like very loose and I like details? Like, is that different for me? You can figure those things out. That's the first part, right? So it's you exploring a career. The second part of shadowing, right, is the functionality of getting into medical school. And so for medical school purposes, what shadowing does is it allows them to have some sort of evidence behind what you say in terms of your desire to be a doctor. So if you've never talked to a doctor, how in the world can you say, oh, I got to be a doctor? Like it's absolutely for me. It's everything I need, right? It'd be ridiculous. So the reason you shadow is so that way you can have letters of recommendation from physicians saying, you know what, Gael, he is the truth. He would be a great physician. He does show interest. He should be a doctor. And when he tells you that, believe him. So you don't need to be in a hospital to actually get a letter of recommendation. And I'll give you the example is that for me, applying to medical school, I actually had no one that I shadowed because I didn't do any shadowing, write me a letter of recommendation. I had one physician write me a letter of recommendation, and his letter of recommendation was not actually mentioning me clinically, but mentioning the attributes I had to become a doctor, right? I did no hospital volunteering because it was terrible. And so, but what I did was I recognized what the purpose of clinical experience was, and I was able to get the letter of recommendation I needed to show these things, and in the body of my work to say that, listen, he's a person who'd be a great doctor. So don't go shadow. Instead, do things like this. Talk to physicians. Do this on your own, right? Email a physician. We love to talk. Email someone and say, hey, I just want to talk to you. Can we be close? Can we get on Zoom? Right? You don't even have to leave your home. I'll hop on a Zoom call with you. I just want to hear about your day and what's going on. So that's what I would say. For getting clinical experience, just talk to doctors. Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's your second question. Your first question is choosing a medical school. You guys want to know what it boils down to, medical school? What do you guys think? What do you guys think you guys should think about when choosing a medical school?
Finance.
Money.
Location.
The fit of the school.
The requirements.
Only thing that matters, two things, okay? Two things, is location and money. Which of those is more important? Money. Money. Medical school is expensive. I mean, nowadays you guys have it a little bit easier because there's all these schools giving away free tuition. But back in my day, back in like 1905, free tuition was like unheard of. Like that was like, they were like, no, you guys, you want to be in this field, pay your dues, right? It was like, I've been through worse, right? Kind of thing. So medical school is expensive. Like I went to Stanford. Stanford right now is $115,000 a year to attend. Okay, it's very expensive. So if you look at all these medical schools, they're very, very expensive. So if you go in there and you don't have any financial aid, you're looking at coming out of debt, right? $400,000 plus, depending. You can't work in medical school. People tell you that, like, oh, I'm going to work. I'm going to be a nurse and I'm going to go to medical school. It doesn't work like that. Okay. So you're going to take out a lot of debt if you don't think about the finances of it. And the problem is, and this is the issue with healthcare. I just talk about people not living purposeful, passionate lives. My life is incredible, is amazing, is so amazing. I couldn't even describe it to you. I'm not being boastful. I'm just telling you my life is the ish, right? You guys still use that term? Is that still a term? Can I say the ish? I'm gonna be appropriate. I won't say the curse word on this thing, right? My life is incredible. Like if you guys see my life, you'd be like, man, I want to live that life. My life is insane. The reason my life is insane is because I was very purposeful about building my career as a physician. And so with that, I took steps to ensure that I created leverage where I could pick and choose exactly what I do with my day. So right now I work part-time in a hospital. A lot of my colleagues are miserable because they have to work 5 days a week, plus they have to work an overnight call shift, plus every other weekend they work a weekend day call. So they're working essentially 6 days a week, including overnights. Does that sound like fun to you guys? No, but they have to do that. Why? because they have lots of medical school debt, because they have lots of personal expenses, and because their only way to pay that debt down and to pay their expenses is being a physician, right? In my situation, I can work part-time as an anesthesiologist at the VA because I have like 15 jobs, right? I created skills outside of my clinical duties. So my primary job, I do 2 days a week at the VA, teaching residents, medical students, doing anesthesia there. I spend 2-ish days a week doing actually pediatric, dental, and outpatient procedural anesthesia. So like broken arms, like a lot of orthopedic stuff, dental stuff. I do that 2 days a week. And that's nice because it's like, those are like half days. And then I also spend right now like 2 to 3-ish days, do the math on that, doing consulting. So I work in healthcare consulting and I get another check from that. So I balance out all these different checks and it allows me to pick and choose and create huge variety in my day. And also, right, I keep my expenses always below what I'm making. I either make a lot and then I can live a little bit more, but I try to keep within means. So if you pick a school that is very affordable, it allows you to have options, both in terms of first and foremost, picking a specialty. So you see a lot of people who want to go into primary care and don't because they recognize, which is totally true, that primary care gets smoked when it comes to reimbursement. So they don't get paid like they should. And people make the argument, don't ever make this argument, guys. It's a poor education point. People make the argument that specialists make too much. So the argument becomes like, oh, you know what? A cardiologist shouldn't make that, or a neurosurgeon shouldn't make that, right? No, that's not the argument. The argument should be that primary care should make more. All physicians should make way more than they make. Even neurosurgeons should make way more, because the level of stress, as you guys will see, you go through your career, the highest paid specialties, except for like derm, they don't have no stress, but they got to look at nasty stuff all day on people's skin, right? That's why they get paid. But all the other specialties, right? Like anesthesia pays in like really, really well, right? One of the highest paid specialties, but it's really high paying because it's super stressful. So the point is if you pick a school that has really good financial aid, you'll be able to then choose a specialty, not based on the salary, but based on liking what you're doing. And that's huge because you're going to spend so much time being a physician, being in the hospital. You want to love what you do. You don't want to be in a specialty that you hate. That's awful. So finances allows you to do that. The second thing is being a physician is nice 4 days, 5 days a week. Being a physician is not nice 7 days a week. And there are a lot of physicians who have to work that much to be able to support their lifestyle and their loans. So if you can get rid of, right, because technically having medical school loans is like having a mortgage, it's like owning a house, but no house. So if you have $300,000 worth of med school debt, right, your payment every month is right around like $3,000 just in student loans, and you're not touching the principal really. So if you think about that, that really limits what specialties you can go to if you have those kind of loans. And then also it limits how little you can work. You have to work a whole bunch to pay for that. So a lot of people I know, they take extra shifts and all those kind of things. So they're trying to pay down their med school loans. So finances matter. Money matters. Everyone who tells you money doesn't matter is ridiculous. Walk away from them. Learn about money. That's why I learned about business, because you have to learn about money. That's why healthcare is in shambles, because doctors didn't want to learn about money. They let everybody else handle it. So anyway, long-winded answer to say finances matter. Pick a cheap school. And this is another honest answer that's going to sound crazy, but it's the truth. Outside of Stanford, every medical school is the same. It's the truth. So whether you go to a low tier, technically, right? It's low rated. US News says it's number 90, right? Whether you go to a low tier, low ranked school, or you go to a top 5 school, it makes very little difference over your career. Stanford is the exception, not because it's clinically strong. It's the exact same. Actually, I think some of the teaching at Stanford is actually worse, to be honest with you, right? Because they have a lot of Nobel people come and they're real smart, but they don't teach well. What sets Stanford apart is that they push you outside of, they push you outside of medicine to do different things and create opportunities. So if you have interest outside of medicine, Stanford creates opportunities and lanes for you to do that. But outside of that, most medical schools are the same. So pick a cheap one and go there. The second thing we talked about, to really quickly wrap it up, is location. And the reason location matters is A, cost of living, but most importantly, it's pick a place where you're comfortable, right? So I didn't go to an East Coast. I was this close to going to an Ivy League school on the East Coast, this close. And then I went and visited there in like late October. And And I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And I was like talking to my wife, my now wife, on the phone. And I was like, oh, it's not that bad. Like everybody said it's so cold. It's not cold. And the guy behind me at security in the airport saved my life, was laughing at me hysterically. I'm like, why are you laughing? And he's like, buddy, it's October. Come back in 2 weeks and tell me it's not cold. So I took him up on it. I came back to that same place like a month later, and the snow, like I said it earlier, I was in my sandals. I was like, oh, I'm gonna change my shoes when I get off the plane. But I like walked through like I don't know what you call it, the tunnel that takes you to the building. And it was so cold in that tunnel. In that very moment, I said, no, it's done. I will not survive 4 years out in the snow. So pick a location where you'll be comfortable, where you'll be cool. Like I also like to go run outside. And I was like, you can't run outside in this. I mean, yes, you can. I won't be running outside in the snow. So I was like, there's all these things that don't work for me. So location and finances. Location, finances, don't go in the hospital, meet doctors, talk to them, befriend them, and learn about the specialty and get a letter of recommendation. Gael, was that your questions? Did I answer them?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Did I get to 15 minutes? My goal was to get to 15 minutes per question. Did I get there?
I think it was a little bit over 15
Okay,
minutes.
all right, perfect. We're on track.
Okay, so the next person to ask the question, so sorry, will be, forgive me, but Sohail.
Yeah, you got it, actually.
Okay.
Dr. P, I've been following you for a while now, and I have a two-part question actually as well. So one, I think other people have already been asking in the chat, what do you know, like in terms of like Caribbean medical schools? 'Cause I see like a lot on Instagram are like spreading out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And my second question has to go towards, because I know, like I said, I've been following you and I've been trying to see how I can kind of get in like to like your student mentor group and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And how we can like arrange like a video conference or something like that we can like go over and talk about things. I just want to see how I could do that.
Yeah. So there was a two-part question there. The first question is Caribbean schools. Second question is getting with me. I'll answer the second question first. I don't meet with any students who aren't in my inner circle. So people gotta know me to meet with me. There's some people on here who know me, have my cell phone number, all kinds of stuff, like who can get at me. My students who are in my courses can get at me in certain ways. But I believe in life that the reason so many of us don't reach our potential is we waste time with people who don't deserve our time. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? How many of you guys been in that relationship where that person didn't deserve you and you stayed with them for way, way too long knowing, and you look back, like the greatest regret of my life is spending way too many years with a woman who was terrible. It's the greatest regret of my life. So from that experience, because of that, I am very, very stingy with my time. So people who earn my time by showing up, by being passionate, by being good people, helping our student group can always get at me. So I just had a student this week email me, her MCAT didn't go as she thought. She's a student with a disability. And so she worked hard, got accommodations. We had a plan together. She was scoring in the 5 mid-teens, even as a student with a learning disability, was doing great. Everything was phenomenal. We were all pumped for it. And then MCAT day came and basically the Pearson Center screwed her over and messed up all of her accommodations. And so her score fell. It wasn't super low, but it was in like 505 range. And so she's devastated. So she emailed me like, listen, I just need to talk to you. I said, here's my cell phone number. Text me, call me this week. So we're going to talk tomorrow and hash it out. So in terms of getting a hold of me, the best way, if you guys want to learn from me, is to get into one of my courses. My website's thestudydoc.com. In terms of my group of my students, you can get in there and get in my group. My group's incredible. It's insane. Like we all are crazy like me. So if you like, being crazy, like we're nuts. We're off the deep end. Okay. So that's how you can get my student group, is my website, studydoc.com. You can follow me on social media. I got tons of stuff out there, including, right, your next question, the Caribbean schools. I got like 3 or 4 videos on my YouTube about Caribbean schools. I have a couple podcast episodes about Caribbean schools. And the short answer is this. I have multiple students at Caribbean schools, multiple students. Going to a Caribbean school itself is not bad. Just like going to any American medical school is not bad. Wherever you go is fine. The key to life, right? The key to getting into medical school is to be a baller pre-med. That's right. That's the reality. If you're a baller, you'll get into medical school. True? Can we all agree? If you're amazing and you know it, will medical schools not accept you? That's the reality. For all you guys who are worried about you're being accepted to medical school, why are you worried? Because you look at parts of your application, you're like, ooh, that's not baller. My 2.5 GPA, that's not baller, right? Yes? Let's be truthful, right? We got to be honest. Everybody understands the reason you wonder is because you're like, ooh, I look at that. That doesn't make me feel good inside. But if you are a baller, you can't help but not get accepted. So when I applied to medical school, I knew I was getting accepted. I was a baller. My life wasn't as good as it is now, but I was balling out. I sought to dominate everything, and I achieved that. So I was incredible as a candidate applying to medical school. I knew it was going to happen. So for you guys, right, as you guys go to apply to medical school, that's what you're going to be thinking about. It's the same thing for residency. So Caribbean schools get a bad rap, and it's a bad rap they deserve in the sense that they have very low standards for acceptance, which is why some people say, listen, I can't get into an American medical school. I can't get into a DO school, so I'm going to go to the Caribbean, right? And that's totally valid. The problem is the reason you can't get into an American school or a DO school might be because you aren't capable. Do you hear what I'm saying right now?
Yeah.
So if you are a terrible student, you get terrible grades, and you don't want to be patient and fix your GPA, and you decide I'm gonna go to the Caribbean school, and you go to that Caribbean school being the same terrible student you've always been, what are you gonna be in the Caribbean school? A terrible student who's gonna get $100,000, $150,000 worth of debt, and then you get kicked out of Caribbean school, and then you're stuck. Or you're gonna go to the Caribbean school and be average and not be able to get a residency. But if you're a baller, like I said, I have students go to Caribbean school all the time and come back and match, totally fine. And the separator is that my students get it together and become their greatness and then go ball out. So I have 2 students right now who I just like in the last year who just finished up their second year, who are the top of both their classes at their respective Caribbean medical schools, the top, right? And that's what it takes if you want to get a residency from a Caribbean school. So my answer to your question is Caribbean schools are totally fine. Don't let people talk you out of a Caribbean school, but recognize if you go there, that's a harder path and you've got to be exceptional. Being average, you're going to be average with a bunch of debt, not able to match. And people who tell you, oh, our students all match, it's a lie. There's a ton, they play with the stats. There's a ton of Caribbean students who do not match, or it takes them 4 years to match. And they match in a specialty they don't want to do, right? How many of you guys who hate kids want to be a pediatrician? You don't, right? How many of you guys who hate to cut want to be a surgeon? You don't. So you want to go into a specialty that you want to go into. So if you go to Caribbean, it's totally fine, but be a better student than your application, because some students have evolved past their application. Does that make sense? Right? Maybe you were partying super hard your first 3 years of college. Then you recognize like, oh man, all it takes to do really well in school is to study consistently and have the right strategies. And then you got consistent, studied well, and you were a straight A student your last year, and maybe you did a post back for another year, and you were a straight A student, you're a better student. But you'll never overcome that 1.5 GPA you got your first 3 years. So then you go to a Caribbean school as the new better student you are, and you come back just fine. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Getting into medical school, there's no prize for applying to medical school. If you apply and get rejected, you're a reject. If you apply and you get into medical school and you blow it off and you get kicked out, or you don't matriculate, or you don't become board certified, what does that tell you? Right? What is your career? How hard is it to get a job as a physician if you're not board certified? Right? If you can't pass your board exams. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm talking in as plain English as I can talk. Medicine is a career of ballers. That's why physicians are arrogant, because what it takes to become a physician is insane. It is. It's ridiculous. It's really sad. It's unfortunate. It's like a torture chamber if you're not doing it right. You guys got to work and put in that time.
Thank you. We have our next question regarding your work-life balance. So you told us earlier that you just came from the urgent care with your 3-year-old daughter. How do you balance your demanding healthcare job with having kids at home?
Yeah, I think so you can have anything in life, guys, but you can't have everything, right? People have heard that before. So you have to be very clear on what your single priority is. And a lot of people are unhappy with their lives. A lot of people feel out of balance because they're not clear on their priority. Life balance is a myth. You're never like fully balanced. Everything is 25. You're never fully balanced. So what you have to be clear on is, why am I out of balance? And is that out of balance serving my purpose? And what you'll see is through life, you'll go through waves where it's like, okay, like, and for me, I'll do me, for example, right? My number one priority is family and fun. That's all I want to do is have fun, hang out with my family. It's literally it. And the reason that's so important to me is I came from a background where my childhood, I don't want to say it like that. That's kind of like, my childhood was chaotic. I'll say it that way, right? Like, we didn't have a lot of money. Things were like all over the place. Like, my childhood was not like the smoothest, right? And so going through that and living that life and coming up that way, all I ever wanted was to not have my children live that way. Does that make sense? So I wanted to be ever present. I wanted my kids to have all the resources they need, all the opportunities, all this stuff. That's like was my thing. And I'm like, oh, I just want them to feel like I love them 24/7. Anything they want, they get, right? That was my goal with my life. And so my whole thing is that anything that takes away meaningful time from my family doesn't get put on my docket. And so when I was shaping out a career, I chose a specialty, anesthesia. One of the perks of it is that anesthesia, I have no patients. So no patient's like, oh, Dr. Pinesett is my doctor. No patient has ever said that in the history of the earth, because I don't have any patients. The surgeon has a patient, and I consult and provide the anesthetic for his patient so he can do his or her procedure to that patient. So because of that, your schedule is very flexible because I don't have to be available to I don't have a patient panel. So I can check in, check out, do what I want to do. And so for you guys, in terms of finding balance, understand your life's gonna go through waves. I worked super hard. Actually, I'll be honest with you guys. I worked when I was first turning my career around. Like I said, I was told by my freshman counselor that I was a terrible student, that I wouldn't graduate and all this kind of stuff. And I was pissed. I hate being told what to do. So it like really fired me up, made me very angry. And so that was literally a sensible moment in my life where I was like, man, I'm going to become a doctor just so I can flip this lady's desk over. Like that was like literally my motivator. I was like, I just want to be able to go back and just be like, you were wrong, and like push her forehead. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like some of that, right? Just wanted to do that to her. And so that was why I was like, no, I'll do whatever it takes. And I worked my tail off for about a year. I worked super hard, not only in my classes, but more importantly in learning how to study, learning how to be productive, learning how to like be a better person, like change my whole life around. And then after all that hard work I learned about myself and learned about what I need to do, put systems in place. Then I cruised junior and senior year of college. It was cake. It was easy. I only studied 10 hours a week. I went to grad school. I had a good time. I went to medical school. I had a great time. Residency was a grind. So I had lots of family time, college, grad school, medical school. I had plenty of time. And then I got to residency, and residency was inflexible. So you have to be there all those hours. You got to work them. And we're working 80 plus hours. Like it's crazy. And so I didn't see my family a whole bunch. Couple that with, at that time, I had been a mentor of students and a coach of students for forever. And I've been working with students, teaching them how to study. And I wanted to formalize it in a better way. So I started a website. I started having courses. I started doing coaching. And so what I would do is I would actually go to work my intern year, and I would be at the hospital at 6, work from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. sign out. So that's what, like 11 hours. And then I would do that. And then I would come home, hang out with my brand new baby. I had a brand new baby during intern year for like an hour or two. And then like 8 o'clock-ish, I would sit at my computer and I would record, I would write, I would do whatever until like 2, 3 in the morning. And then I get up at 6 and do it all over again every day. So I slept very little for a time, right? So during that time, I had very little work-life balance. But then by doing that, right, and spending that time and being a professional and being excellent in all these different fields, it creates the opportunity now where I get to have so much fun. Like we hang out with my students. That's the relationships I have through my students. It's incredible. It's so much fun. And that's like balance for me. And then being able to hang out with my kids and spend time with them, it's incredible to do. So you're going to go through times where you work and you play. The thing I'll say about work-life balance is it's better to work hard early, because the play you can play later is always bigger. It's like investing. The reason you put a little bit of money away early, so that little bit of money you invest, like you ever seen that curve, right? Well, if I put $5 away when I'm 10 years old, when I'm 80, it's 30 million, right? But if I put $5 away when I'm 60, like that kind of thing. It's the same thing with life, yeah? Jackie said front load, right? You've got to front load your work. So too many students, I think, are trying to have work-life balance before they've earned work-life balance. If you have not dedicated yourself to learning how to study, how can you expect to be able to study a little bit and be able to have fun a lot? You're an amateur student. Got to become professional, right? Same thing with pre-med. How many of you guys messed up early on in your career and now you've been running like mad trying to play catch up from what you botched early on? But if you would have started strong, it's all downhill. And so it's the same way. You guys got to put in work. And right now, pre-med, that's the best time to work because it changes your whole career trajectory. How would your life change if you got into medical school? For some of y'all, how many of your family's lives would change? It's not a drill. It's not a joke. I'm in my office right now in my house. This is a fake plan over here if you guys can't see, right? I just bought a house like 2 months ago. My house is insane. It's very nice. It's a little more than half a mile from the beach in San Diego. My house is insane. It's huge, ginormous. And I say all this to say this. When my dad came over to my house for the first time, he literally wept like a grown man. My dad's bigger than me. My dad's 6'3". He's a former football player, professional football player. My dad's 6'3", 300 pounds. He came in my house and cried. Imagine that. I'm standing there. I'm like, I don't know how to react to that because he understands, right, what that is, right? From where we came from, right? Let's get into it. But from where we came from, to me to live in this house, I celebrate every day because that's what I worked for. That's when I put in time to change everybody's trajectory, right? I got some hate mail the other night because I didn't think I was flexing on. I was being real people. People were talking about something ridiculous, and I was like, listen, I don't have time to deal with these peasant stuff. My kids got water polo practice, and I was like, bam, right? I said that, and people were like, oh, you're being so snooty. I'm like, you're darn right, I'm snooty. I'm obnoxious because I earned it. Does that make sense to everybody? So my point is, I can say whatever I want to say, whenever I want to say it. And if anybody has anything to say about it, the proof's in the pudding. I've worked for it. I'm verified in every kind of which way. Anything I say is the truth and anything else is false, right? So put in work because if you work hard, then no one can say anything to you. I told you, I hate being told what to do, that lady told me what to do. And I was like, oh, never again. I shall never be in a position where I didn't do the work to be able to call the shots. And so I outwork everybody. So work hard, but work towards a purpose. A lot of you guys are busy for no reason. I had a student. I just be messing with people because I know people are flakes. So I had a student email me saying this super long life story email. I'm in San Diego. I just want to come shadow, right? They're Gael. It wasn't Gael, but it was a student like Gael. I just want to shadow. She just shadow, right? I was like, all right, cool. Come shadow me, right? And I knew the student wasn't going to shadow me because I get a million emails a day. I'm going to come. Oh yeah, come shadow me. Yeah, come shadow me. You know what? Here, I gave him my cell phone number. Here's my cell phone. Text me. Come shadow. They text me. Oh yeah, can I come shadow this week? Yeah, sure. Here's when I'm working. You want to come? Okay, yeah, I'll be there on Tuesday. I was like, great. Monday night, I get a phone call. Hey, I may be there a little bit late tomorrow. I just remembered I got something. All right, cool. Tuesday morning, hey, things taking a little bit longer than I think, so I'm gonna be there before lunch, but I'll be there. And then the person never showed up. And then at the end of the day, like, hey, listen, they just got busy, got away from me. So can we shadow another day? I'm like, no, you can't. You missed it. Sorry, thanks. Block number. Okay. So the point is, stop being busy for no reason and be busy towards a purpose of building a life that you and your family can be so proud of. It's insane. So like I said, no wasted motion. I don't waste my time with ain't nothing people. I sent an email out to my students yesterday and I even put it in the PS. I put a PS like, hey, I don't have time for you guys who are dead weight. If you're dead weight, don't join our new student group. And I'm in advance. I'm not sorry. And thank you for unfollowing me. And of course I got some emails. I'm unfollowing you. You're rude. Yes. Because I don't have time for you. Think about this, guys. I'm being dead serious. You get nothing else from all this rest of this. How many of you guys waste time with tomfoolery all day? Following influencers on social media, don't know anything about anything. Right? How many of you guys are like, oh, playing video games on my phone? I haven't touched a video game since forever. Once I got real good in college, at dominating college, then I had Guitar Hero. And I'd rock out the Guitar Hero for days at a time. But I earned that, okay? I'm an insane Guitar Hero player, insanely terrible. I spend all that time terrible. But does that make sense? So put in work, guys, get great. And then in terms of work-life balance, just say no to things. And again, it goes back to money. Keep your expenses low. So like I said, my house is really nice, but I can afford it. I have 15 jobs. If I didn't have 15 jobs, I wouldn't buy this kind of house, right? So live below your means. Get used to living Like my wife and I, we joke now, but we lived, like, we look back at all the different places we were in. We're like, man, why did we live in that one place? Because, oh, we were saving cash. We're stacking cash. We're stacking cash. We're stacking cash. Because we were living in a 500 square foot place. We live in a place with roaches when I was studying for MCAT. We like all this stuff, but we had a plan. So live below your means and you can have some work-life balance. You don't have to work 90 million hours. People tell you like, oh my gosh, I'm a surgeon. I have to work 90 hours. You don't. You can be a surgeon and work part-time, but you won't make full-time money. So what are your expenses like? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, did I answer it? What was the question even? I don't know what the question was.
You answered that.
That's when I know I had a good answer, when I don't know what the question was. I just went off 20 minutes on who knows the what's what. Okay.
You had the perfect answer. So our next question is going to come from Ashlyn. So Ashlyn, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, go right ahead.
Okay, so I started my undergraduate here recently. I'm 26. I've been an EMT for years. I decided to one-up myself. The question is PA or MD? I've got family pushing for PA, you know, oh, it's quicker. I'm pushing a little more on the other side. So pros and cons, either way.
Okay, pros and cons. I also have a video on this on my YouTube channel. It's like RN, PA, MD, all this kind of stuff. Every career in healthcare is great for the right person. Every career in healthcare is great for the right person. But if you pick wrong, you're going to be miserable because healthcare sucks.
Yes, it does.
I think it sums it up. Healthcare is right? Healthcare is a land of misery because people are sick, people are hurt, people are worried about their loved ones. Like there's a lot of craziness that goes on. So you have to make sure you're in the right career type and in the right specialty for your personality. PA versus MD, the big difference is level of responsibility and level of freedom. So if you don't mind being supervised by another person, you don't mind being confined, like more to a limited scope, then a PA is a great career. Nice salary, nice hours, right? Very little liability. It's a cool career. But you don't have the career flexibility and freedom of an MD to be independent, to be all over the place. So it's different, right? As a PA, you can change specialties. As an MD, you don't change specialties. You are what you are.
Okay. I think that about answers it.
So that's like in a nutshell. It's essentially PA is, I tell people mid-level providers are on the rise. Like if you want to go into primary care, don't be an MD. Go be a mid-level provider, a PA, an NP. Like go do that because it will pay you almost about the same, a little bit less, but you won't have $250,000, $30,000 with the med school debt and all those lost years of lost wages.
Right.
That's the truth.
I love the emergency, the rush,
yeah.
the everything's new every single day.
Yeah. So our urgent care, we came for urgent care. There was a PA and an NP there. And then the doctor signs their charts. He's not even in-house. So next week sometime, he'll read about my daughter and her finger and sign the chart. So like I said, NPs, PAs, and they're a growing field. You guys are going to see NPs, PAs become much more independent and start stealing a lot of what used to be physician jobs. Why? Because of money. Because it's much more cost effective for a hospital to have a nurse practitioner do what a physician could have been doing. That's what happened. So yeah, so in terms of which one is better, it's just your personality type. But if you're like, listen, my family needs money, I don't mind being supervised, I want to be in critical care environments and a little bit of oversight, it's kind of cool because I have someone who's got my back, then be a PA. And a lot of people ask me about like, oh, mid-level providers taking stuff over, and they're like, oh, well, CRNAs and anesthesia. Another great thing about anesthesia is we're protected forever. You'll never see anesthesia undercut by a mid-level provider. Why? Because most CRNAs don't want to be anesthesiologists. They don't want to not have an anesthesiologist watching their back. Right? I work in the VA, right? I'm faculty at UCSD, working in the VA. The entire VA, right? There's VAs all across the country. They had a vote. They sat down and said, hey, CRNAs, you guys want to be independent? It will save us a lot of money. You guys want to be independent? And CRNAs are like, no, we don't want it. I like being able to call on a physician and ask questions and have backup and not have to carry that kind of liability insurance, malpractice. It's kind of cool. So mid-level providers, it's a great careers. They're awesome. Like, if you're going to become a doctor, don't be mean to mid-level providers. They're awesome. They do a great job in healthcare. Don't be ridiculous. And if you want to be a mid-level provider, don't let anybody else make you feel bad about being that. Like, not at all. Like, you should never be ashamed for doing what's right for you. MDs are not superior to PAs or NPs. They have a different skill set, different knowledge base, different function. But everybody fits their function in healthcare. Yes, Ashlyn, is that good?
Yes, right. You do kind of get some of that, like, oh, well, if you're going to do that, why don't you just be a doctor, Yeah. But for me,
so again, I'm on here right now and I say real inflammatory stuff. I know, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Some of you guys are gonna leave here, you're gonna hate me. And that's okay, because I'm not talking to you, right? You have to get to a point in your life, if you want to be happy, where you don't care about other else, because they don't care about you. People judging you, Ashlyn, for wanting to be a PA, is because they're upset with their own lives.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't help you. Oh, you want to be a PA? They help you. They don't want to help you. They just want to make fun of what you're doing because they can't do anything. They're terrible people. Yes, we recognize?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Nobody cares about you. Nobody's judging your outfit. I wear sweats every day. I'm in the hospital, I wear scrubs. So I guess I wear sweats literally every day, right? That was like my mission in life. I wear Walmart. My wife hates them because she judges me. But again, I don't care. She married me. She's stuck to it, right? I wear Walmart sweats. She's like, why are you wearing Walmart sweats? I said, because they're $8. I can get 15 pairs, right? Like, I'm good. You can laugh at these pants if you want to. I'm super comfortable. So stop letting people phase your career choices. Okay.
All right, our next raised hand is Nestor. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Pinesett.
What up? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Where you been?
You know what? This is actually my first shadowing session. I didn't get any of the emails before, so it's my first one.
All right. What's going on?
But I just had a quick question on DOs. I just kind of want to get your overall thoughts on them because they're kind of a med school that I'm kind of considering, but I get a lot of pushing towards MD because it's either MD or nothing. And I don't know if there's really like a difference in practice. And I'm sure there's a lot of threads on this, but I kind of just want to hear it, from an actual physician.
Yeah, exactly. Don't listen to threads, guys. That's the other takeaway from today. Don't go on the forum. If you guys are on SDN, delete your account right now. The place is for losers. Period. Okay. Everybody hear what I'm saying right now? SDN's a bunch of basement dwellers. I got banned from SDN. Can you believe that? They banned me. Okay. Because I called them basement dwellers. I guess that's frowned upon on SDN. So the key thing here, again, don't listen to people who don't know anything about anything. Listen to people who are in the know and know what's up. In terms of MD versus DO, we have to be real. And I get hate mail about this as saying this. There is a huge stigma around being a DO. There's a huge stigma around being a Caribbean med school grad. Oh my gosh, they're a DO. They don't know as much as an MD. They're not as good as an MD. And the truth is that most stigmas come from a real place that's been tainted. People choose to go to a DO oftentimes because they can't get into an MD. That's 90% of people go to DO is because they couldn't get an MD. Can we all agree on that? Can we nod our head yes? It's like, oh, you know what? DO has a little bit lower criteria, and I think I can fit in there. I can get in there. What's the difference in MD and DO? In 99% of practice situations, zero. There's very little difference. If you talk to most DOs, they don't use their osteopathic training. They use, right? They don't do their manipulations. They just treat patients in the standard, and you call it Western science method, whatever you want to call it, right? So in terms of clinical practice, there's a very little difference. Are DOs inferior doctors to MDs? Not at all. Not at all. It's the same exact test they have to pass. They're the same level of doctor. When they applied to medical school, they might have been a less, or I don't want to say inferior, a less qualified applicant, but it doesn't mean they're a less qualified person. And so a DO is just as much a doctor as an MD, but the public and sometimes people who are in training see it differently, right? And some of the people who are in power are old school, old people, and they also see it as different. So if you go the DO route, the key thing is to build up a network of both DOs and MDs because you're going to want to have people who can speak on your behalf and people who can open a door so you can bust in and impress them with your amazingness. That's important. And the second thing is that you actually want to be amazing. So it's very important that you develop your clinical knowledge. It's very important that you develop your patient skills, all those things to be a competent doctor. But in terms of MD versus DO, DOs have opportunities as long as they're excellent. And it's the same thing with MDs. They have lots of opportunities if they're excellent. If you're not excellent, you're in trouble. But if you're from a DO school and your step score is 90th percentile and you've got incredible letters of recommendation and everyone speaks highly of you and you've quote unquote checked all the boxes for residency, why would a residency not want you? But what's the more common scenario, right? This is just statistics, right? Is if you go to a DO school, statistically, you have a lower MCAT score and lower GPA. Can we all agree? So statistically, board scores from DO students tend to be what? Higher or lower? Statistically, lower overall, okay? Additionally, what also contributes to that is that you have to learn essentially 2 sets of curriculum. So like with anything, you're multitasking, you're diluting, so it also drives their board scores down more. But if you work hard on the DO side, you can score great on board scores just like an MD. Just like there's MDs who get into an MD school, don't work hard, and their board score is trash, right? It works both ways. So if you go DO, just work hard, be excellent, have a good network, and your career will be fine. So again, don't let people scare you off from anything. Either one's fine. And someone I just saw in the box here made the point about internationally. That's the other thing about mid-level providers or DOs versus MDs is that internationally, your degree is not worth as much. But if you don't want to go internationally, it doesn't matter. And 99% of people don't want to practice internationally, so it doesn't matter. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
So the biggest takeaway from what I just said is don't go into SDN. It's full of basement dwellers.
Keep that in mind. Thank you.
That's actually the most important thing I'll say all night tonight. Please, guys, save our country. This is your chance. Stay off of SDN.
Okay, so right now we are going to ask a question from our doc here. So our question is going to be, what is the largest...
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How long are we planning to do this session?
So
6:30.
6:30.
I'm open to do it for however long. I don't care. I talk for days into time. I'm just asking because then if we're like, okay, listen, we've got to be off here at 6:05, I'll probably answer questions a little bit shorter and be less ridiculous. I'll just be like, to the point, this. Is everybody learning at least? It's a valuable use of an hour of your time?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. All right. So then we can keep answering questions. So yeah, I'm not rushing you. Rose, I'm sorry. I asked that question like, listen, I got to go. I didn't mean it in that way, right? I meant just like, I don't want to be waste people's time if we're out of here in 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh no, you're not wasting anyone's time right now. Okay. So we can go however long you really want. Honestly, if everyone's up to having a long session, I'm down. So our question is going to be, what is the largest struggle of your medical journey that you face and how have you overcome it?
I'll answer this in twofold. I say the first thing I've overcome is my delayed start. We'll call it that. So I am, to the essence, a disadvantaged student, right? I didn't have financial opportunities. I didn't have experience. I was the first person in my family to graduate college when I eventually did that, right? I didn't have financial resources, all kind of things. I was in an incredibly slow reader when I started college. I was just an awful, terrible, no good reader. I was a terrible student. So when I started college, like I said, I was a terrible student. She was right. It was fair, right? But she labeled me and said I was permanent when I wasn't. But so one of the biggest things that I think I overcame with was just understanding, and I try to instill this in all students, is that you can be whatever you want to be, and that we all are on kind of and that's why I said delayed start. We're all on a spectrum, a continuum of our greatness. And we all have infinite potential to be insanely amazing and to be the best. But the problem is that so many of us look at where we are and we're so upset about how far behind we are that we never get started in the process of catching up. And so for me, I recognized that I was super behind in a lot of different ways. And I recognize that if someone's ahead of you in a race, right, and they're running on foot, you can't be running on foot behind them if you're slower than them and catch them. So I built myself a car and drove right past everybody. So you have to work differently. And so me, in terms of studying and becoming a great student and an efficient student, that was the first obstacle I overcame. And like, that was my biggest, like, kind of career obstacle. I think in terms of medicine, one of the obstacles that I've had to face and overcome is being different, in the sense that medicine is a very traditional field, right? And people like what they're used to seeing. And so for me, I'm all over the place, not only in how I talk, but just how I am. My interests are very varied. And I recognized early on that physicians had made themselves fry flippers. And to explain that, physicians are completely interchangeable, right? So I'm looking at Isaac Tatcher, and I'm looking at Bella Sunshine below him on the screen, right? So if it's Dr. Tatcher and Dr. Sunshine, you guys are both hospitalists, right? You're internal medicine trained hospitalists. I don't care whether Tatcher does the job or Sunshine does the job. You're the exact same to me. Does that make sense to everybody? As a physician, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to separate yourself specifically on clinical ability. Does that make sense? Why does that make sense? Dr. Tatcher, why are you the same as Dr. Sunshine?
Because physicians are interchangeable.
Why? What makes physicians interchangeable?
Because medicine is a very traditional field. So,
because of standards of practice and clinical guidelines. Someone has this type of pneumonia, they must get what? This type of antibiotic. Someone's leg is gangrenous. Therefore, I must cut off leg above gangrenous point. I don't care whether Tatcher cuts it off or Sunshine cuts it off. Somebody cut the leg off. Does this make sense to everybody? So if you guys who have shadowed, you've probably seen like, ooh, that doctor is not a good doctor. That doctor is not a good doctor. But that doctor has a job because there's no real evaluation. Just like they're there, they fill a spot, they fill a void. So it's really hard to separate clinically in medicine because it's very regimented. And as you guys have seen in your pre-med process, becoming a physician is like climbing a pyramid to oneness, right? You used to be like this multi-dimensional person with all these interests and all this stuff. And every year, what happens to your interests? What happens to the things you're involved in? What happens to your love? Just, I only love science and helping people, right? Yes? And so this is what everyone becomes. So then everyone who is a physician, what are they? Very singular focused. And so for me, I took the approach of, yeah, medicine's cool, but there's so much more to medicine than just treating a patient. There's so much more to it. And I want to know it all, including the business side, right? Including the logistics side. So when I do consulting right now, I do productivity. So I teach practices where they're being inefficient. That's inefficient. That's not streamlined. That's a poor workflow. And I fix their workflows, make them more productive, makes them more what? Money. Everything's back to money. Okay. But physicians devalue that. So early on in my career, some of the people I got around, this is the importance of proper mentors who encourage you and don't squish you. That's why Stanford's amazing, because they encourage you. But there's a lot of people who are in medicine who will tell you, oh, no, don't do that. What does that have to do with medicine? Oh, no, you can't say that. They'll think you're not interested in medicine. I don't know, like, and they tell you all these things. So for me, I did a whole bunch of stuff that was not medically related. So when I was in pre-med, I didn't do any shadowing, I didn't do any volunteering because I was into that. Instead, I started a tutoring company, tutored a lot of students, started a free tutoring program, served students that way, did my volunteering that way. So I did it differently. And so it's a battle of working through medicine and constantly having people like the people who dwell in the basements of SDN tell you that because you're different, you're wrong. Right? I'm a different sort. And something that's wrong, but I'm like, no, I'm right. I'm rightly me. And so I think that one of the battles that you guys will all face in your careers is being comfortable with who you are, but being the best version of who you are. And so for me, that was a struggle because again, I came from this background where I didn't have people I could like instantly turn to and say, hey, dad, physician dad, does this work? Am I okay being me? Right? I didn't have, so I had to work really, really hard to build the right network of people around me who were like, no, you're awesome. Let your light shine, right? Sing with that terrible voice you have, right? They let me be me. And so that helped me flourish in my career. So for you guys, maybe some of you guys struggling with that. I don't know. I struggle with that. Find people who are excited about who you are and will help you make who you are into a successful person, whether it be physician, otherwise, or whatever. Does that make sense? So I'll give you a specific example. Let me see. Let me make sure I don't have anybody crazy on here. I can say this. This is not recorded, right? It instantly disappears and goes in the ether. So I'll just say this. I'll do it more anonymously. At a point in my career, I started my business, right? So I work with students, I provide courses, I provide coaching, I do all those things. And at the time, I was doing lots of speaking. So when I go out and I do a speaking event, and I do 4 hours, 8 hours, do full day like speaking events for students. When I go do a keynote, my speaker's fee is a lot. So I charge $5,000 to appear normally, okay? So I was in a program and I was getting paid to go speak and do different things. And when the medical program heard about this, they were outraged that A, that I was doing something outside of medicine, and then B, that people were paying me for it. And so they attempted to shut me down and tell me I was terrible and all these things and whatever, right? And so I had to have the strength within myself. And then also I had to have a network around me who could come in and intervene and say, no, that's not going to happen. Quiet yourself. He's going to do what he's passionate about and continue on to go. Does that make sense? So throughout your career, you're going to have people who are going to try to extinguish your fire. And so you have to really battle, be very clear about, again, your priorities and what you care about and say, no, everything else can fade. I'm on this. I'm on this. And then you got to be able to go with it and also have support. That's why having the right network allows you to have more clout than even you could have. So we have, right, my Cult of Greatness group. That's my COG, right? You see people put COG in the box, right? With the Cult of Greatness, because I'm trying to brainwash everybody to be great, okay? And my coaching programs are masterminds. Why? Because we are a hive mind, meaning that what any one student has, we all need to have. And so when you guys build your networks with your mentors, don't have mentors who won't give you what you need, right? You should have mentors who are like, no, what do you need? You got it. Here, boom, boom, boom. They should be uplifting you and helping you reach pedestals, not standing from afar saying, well, yeah, go do something. They should be like, no, how can I help you get to that next rung? And I've been so fortunate. I'm a slow starter. I'm kind of an introvert, believe it or not. I'm an introvert. I don't really like talking to people. And so I had to really work hard to come out of my shell and to be proactive about building a network. And I built an incredible network that supported me, and it allowed me to, move on in my career. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. We have our next question from Mary Frances Garcia. Go ahead.
Hey, Dr. P.
Hello.
Hello. I'm currently a sophomore in undergrad right now, and the questions I do have to ask you, two of them. One would be, what are your study tips for studying for the MCAT, especially as I'd say I'm young, but obviously not that young. And as a sophomore, I'd say it's early, but not exactly early to be studying. So I am asking for those study tips. And I'm also asking about your opinion on gap years between undergrad and med school, because that's something that's becoming an increasing trend. And at least for me, I'm trying as much not to have that gap year, but I just wanted your opinion on it.
Yeah, a gap year is incredible. Take 5 gap years. I mentioned you do this. So actually, I just had a conversation with a medical student a couple weeks ago, and he was asking me about consulting, right? And he's like, listen, I'm about to start my 3rd year of medical school, but I've been hearing more about this consulting, and I kind of think it would be cool. But then I've heard different things about it. And as I explained to him, and I explained to everybody, this is one of the great truths of life, guys. You will never be freer than you are today. Hear me and hear me now. You will never be freer than you are today. If you don't take a gap year now to do something that you want to do, or to build your resume or do whatever, when are you ever going to take that gap year? Are you just going to stop practicing for a year? Are you going to step out of medical school? Hey guys, just need a year to really, just collect my thoughts. And no, right? So all that artificial pressure. So you talk about tips for MCAT. Here's 2 tips. And I hate tips, sorry. But the first one is, the biggest mistake people make on the MCAT is that they put artificial time pressure on themselves. Who here has studied for the MCAT before or is currently studying for the MCAT? Raise your hand, type in the box, whatever. Everyone put your screens on. Raise your hand so I can see it in my face. See some hands. Okay, lots of hands. And the reason these hands are important, Gael's got his hand real high, scraping the roof. He's like 7 feet tall, okay? Real tall, right? So the reason this is so important, everyone's got the me's in the boxes. This is so important. For people who are studying for the MCAT, how many of you guys is your biggest stress that you don't have enough time to study? Okay, we can all be honest. It's everybody's hands, right? That's the truth. There is no time that is too late. People are like, oh, I'm too late. I'm getting too old. I want to take a gap year. I got to apply this year. I got blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They're going to discriminate because I'm old or whatever, right? All these things. All that pressure you put on yourself, you know what's going to do? It's going to keep you out of medical school. It's going to keep you from taking the time you need to become the top MCAT scorer, right? All it takes to do well on the MCAT is it's a simple equation. It's quality of time times quantity of time. And for most students, they gyp that quantity because they got 50,000 obligations. Well, I got to take my MCAT my senior year or my junior year because I don't want to have a gap year. The only problem is junior year, I'm trying to publish. I'm president of this club. I'm this, da, da, da. You got 50,000 obligations. Well, if you're doing all that, how can you give the MCAT everything it needs? Right? Nod your head ferociously, MCAT preppers who are doing this to yourself. You know, I'm supposed to study Thursday night, but then I heard like Dr. Pinesett speaking, so I'm just going to go to that instead of studying, but it'll be okay because I'm going to make it up after that. After he talks for 15 hours, right, when it's 1 a.m., I'm going to start studying for the MCAT. That's going to be successful. And you wonder why your score sucks, right? That's the first type of pressure. Second type of pressure is like, oh, I can't take a gap year, or oh, I can't wait until after I graduate and study because, oh, the dreadful gap year, what might happen to me? I'll melt and I'll never get into medical school. I'll ask a simple question. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? If you had an entire year to only study for the MCAT, would your MCAT score be better?
Yes.
Viral said no. That's a lie. Viral, unmute yourself. I'm going to unmute you right now. Do I have power like that? Nina, you got the power. Unmute Viral right now.
I did.
Okay. All right. So everyone else was nodding yes, they'd be better. Why would your score not be better if you study for the MCAT for a year?
Because I am a better studier. I know sometimes I'm a better studier last minute. If I review things.
Okay, wait, stop. I'm going to interrupt you. Mute her. Okay. Mute her now, Nina. Mute her. It's okay. You can mute her. Okay. Oh my gosh. Cult of Greatness people, please don't go off in the box right now. Okay, listen. Okay. I'm going to shame Viral right now, okay? I'm going to be very mean to Viral. I'm not being mean to Viral to be mean to Viral. I'm being mean to Viral, so I'm yelling at you guys in the back who didn't raise your hand, who feel that same way. Okay? Okay. No one is a great last-minute studier, period. And I say this not from me making up in the air, but because there's actual research on this, where they took people who said, oh yeah, I'm a great last-minute studier, and looked at their performance. And it turns out what really happens is that when you have a deadline, what does it force you to do, Viral? It forces you to focus, right? So when you cram last minute, it's a firm deadline that you cannot procrastinate through. However, what if you in your mind created a deadline that was real to you and you focused like it was last minute? So for example, instead of saying, oh, I got a test tomorrow, I better focus. What if you said, I have a test in 3 months, so I better focus? Would 3 months of high focus get you a better grade than 1 day of high focus? Pay very close attention, guys, because this lie is so common. And as I said, like, don't lie to yourselves, guys, and justify your poor decisions.
Can I just clarify real quick?
There's no clarification. Everybody understood what she said, right?
Well, yes.
Everybody knew exactly what she meant. Everybody knew exactly what she meant. What? Go ahead, clarify.
I think a year is too long. Like 3 months, yes, I could, yes. But if I start studying a year in advance, I don't know if I will remember things or like not memorize, but like, because I learn as I go kind of thing.
Perfect. Mute viral again. Oh, if I study for a year, I can't remember what I studied a year ago.
Like then you're memorizing.
Wait. So then, is the issue time or what's the issue?
Those hard deadlines that you just told me to set for myself, I have a really hard time following
through. It's the deadline, and it's your inability to retain information. So if you can't retain what you learned a year ago, the problem is not with the time period. The problem was with your approach and your ability to create retention.
Agreed. I am trying to work on that. That is why.
Does that make sense? Right? Elon Musk, right? He changes the world because he studies all the time. You remember stuff from 15 years ago. You have a doctor, right? I graduated medical school 1 billion years ago. You think I can't remember the medicine? That would be ludicrous. Why do you do 4 years of residency? So that way, with all those repetitions, you create retention, right? With all that active learning, you create retention. So your issue is in your approach to studying that doesn't facilitate you learning for a year. So I think it was Mary that asked about being a sophomore and studying for the MCAT. Well, as a sophomore, I teach all my students how to build and blend their MCAT studying right into their classes in such a way that facilitates repetitions and retention, right? So it's about having an approach to it. It's a tactical thing. If you suffer from procrastination, you need a potion, right? If you suffer from procrastination, the answer is not to succumb to procrastination and say, I'm just better last minute. I'm just going to wait till last minute. That's absurd. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for that. I'm just like trying to oh, I just like being last minute. It's like saying, oh, you know what? I'm able to get dressed so fast when I wait until 5 minutes before school. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get dressed. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, that's absurd. Just get dressed. Put your clothes on. Right? So my students, as an example, you see people put in the box front loading. I teach all my students in my 5 pillars course to set an artificial deadline of well before the test. So my students all must learn all the material at least a month before the test. And then I give them all the steps to carry through to actually stick to that deadline. And then they're a month ahead of their class because they set a deadline and they treat it just like it's finals week. But that's a mentality shift, right? So SDN called me motivational speaker. That's why I fired off. Call me I'm a transformational speaker. It's a difference. I penetrate your mind, mush it up a little bit, and then I instill things to get things done. But so many of you guys, so many people in life, right? The reason they are not who they could be is because their mental mindset. And so that's why viral, again, you're amazing. I'm not attacking you personally. But the problem with most students is that they have terrible mindset. And it's not like, oh, growth mindset. Yeah, whatever. Your perspective, your lens through which you see the world and your place in it skews what you can do. So when you tell yourself you're a better last minute studier, what then is your natural inclination to do? Procrastinate. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? People who are night owls. I'm just a night owl. I can't get up early. What? It's a mindset. It's a mentality. So when we talk about mindset, it's all over the place. So with my students, like I said, with a cult of greatness, I have to change your mind before I can actually give you good stuff to use, right? So Mary asked for tips for MCAT. The reason I don't like giving tips is because, Mary, I can give you all the tips in the world. I can sit here and teach you MCAT for 3 hours right now. But unless I change your mind, your perspective, what your abilities were in the MCAT, none of the strategies would matter because you wouldn't implement. If I told Viral, hey, Viral, listen, here's what you got to do. Set a real deadline, study for a year, go do it. Would Viral do it? Everyone nod your head no. You know she wouldn't because she doesn't believe yet. I haven't shaken her from her false belief. So your mentality, your perspective, your lens, your mindset is everything, right? Why do you care about other people? Because you try to see yourself through their eyes. I see myself through my own eyes. I don't need your eyes. My eyes work just fine. It's a perspective. Does that make sense? Right? So many of you guys are taught for the MCAT a whole bunch of wrong stuff. That frames your lens, your frame of reference for the MCAT. we do MCAT coaching. Part of my course, we do every month, we do MCAT coaching. And MCAT coaching turns into this viral where I'm yelling at someone. Why? Because they're like, listen, like we had like, what was it, a couple weeks ago where someone said, hey, Dr. Pinesett, like I'm really struggling right now because I'm trying to do your passage attacking system, but I'm really, really struggling with time, you know, and I think the problem is that I'm kind of bringing in what Jack Weston says to do. And I was like, well, listen, you're either doing what I say to do or you're doing what Jack Weston says to do. You can't do both. And so I broke down Jack Weston's whole approach for 15 minutes and said how it was completely wrong and backwards and terrible. And then explained how if she was doing this, she would have better time. And she's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. But it's a perspective, all right? Everyone has Jack. Who here, raise your hand if you get Jack Weston emails. Raise your hand, everybody. Jack Weston, okay? You have to choose what is right and what is wrong. Something is setting your moral compass, something is setting your life compass, right? Your directionality. And you have to choose who you're listening to and how you're listening to them and what you're going to do. You make your choices. So Mary, when people tell you it's too early to study for the MCAT, they're losers. Don't listen to them. Because why would you not want to study for a test as long as possible? I would. Right? Does everybody understand what I'm saying right now? Because some loser told Mary not to study. Don't worry about the MCAT. It'll be fine. Same thing happens to medical school. Right? When my students go to medical school, I say, listen, rule number one in medical school, don't listen to second years. They don't know what they're talking about. They're going to tell you, oh, listen, it's totally normal to struggle at first year. Don't even worry about step one. You just live your best life. You're in medical school now. You just enjoy it. You know what? What? No. My students study for step one from day one. We don't mess around. We come to win. Does everybody understand what I'm saying right now?
Yes, thank you for that straight up, just straight to it. You know, we really appreciate that. I feel like a lot of people just like, they walk around the issue a lot of times. I like how you just go head into it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad. All right. So I've only lost half the group, but for those of you who are getting this message, I'm talking to you. I don't care about them. Right. That's why I have limited followers on social media. I don't care. Right. You get millions of followers. I might have to, you know, round off some of my hard edges, but it's very, very important. Please, guys, be truthful and honest and real with yourself and evaluate, am I doing something just because I've always done that or because someone told me to do that? Or am I doing it because it's actually helping me? That's the truth. Okay? All right. What was the question? Oh, MCAT studying. Yeah. So yes, it's time pressure. Avoid time pressure at all costs. I won't give you any tips here. Literally on my homepage of my website, you can click the button. I have a 3-hour MCAT webinar. It's totally free. 3 hours of me teaching about the MCAT. Yeah. I have a whole MCAT course. If you guys want the course is amazing too. Whatever.
Solid. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to call on our next question. We have Gisela. Go ahead.
Hi. So I just had a question about the thing that you said about picking med schools, and I noticed that you didn't really focus on, let's say, stats. And I feel like money and location is extremely important. But for me, I have a lower GPA of overall 3.1. And so for me to be able to stay in California doesn't seem like really possible. And I just wanted to see what your thought about that is. I have not.
I'm sorry. I was talking about like when you're actually deciding which school you want to go to.
Right.
That was the question earlier. In terms of which schools you're going to apply to, you apply where you're competitive, obviously.
Oh,
right? So,
okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, two separate questions. For Gael, I thought we were talking about like, okay, when you're at the phase and you're going to make your list and you're saying, okay, which schools do I actually want to go to? Obviously, you have to get in, right? But then if you get in, what are you considering? Money and location. In terms of applying to medical schools, yes, you have to get in. That's step number one. So 3.1 in California is really tough. Why? Because the West Coast, as we said, it all comes full circle. West Coast is the best coast. Everyone wants to be out here. It's amazing. I'm sorry. It just is.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right? And for me, like the money issue is a really big thing too, because some people have suggested like a master's program just to differentiate that or prove that I can be a better student now. But that is a lot of money down right away. And so for me, I don't know what the best like next step would be to quote unquote fix that GPA. I was considering community college classes, but of course that's also has a stigma. So I don't really know how to prove I
have like a 45-minute video, maybe it's 35-minute video on my YouTube channel talking about low. And I think I have several videos, but I did one recently where I think like 30 or 45 minutes me talking about like low GPA, what to do. So I think that like, go check that out. But you want to stay in California because your family's here and that's cool.
Yes,
but in terms
everything's
of finances,
here.
like if you're financially tapped and your GPA is low and it's not good enough to get into a California school, there's nothing wrong with going elsewhere for medical school. Because, and like, one of the things that I talk about, like I went to Stanford for medical school, and had it not been Stanford, I would be like, oh man, I should never have gone there. Because Palo Alto is absurdly expensive for no reason. I live at the base of a hill. Palo Alto's the pits, okay? But Stanford's amazing. But if I look at it, right, and I really flip it around, like going to a school in North Carolina, in Sticks, Iowa, I don't know, like not to, if anyone's from Iowa, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean? Like going to a school out in the middle of nowhere, it's cheaper living. Like I have friends who are in medical school who bought houses on the lake in North Carolina. I'm like, how do you buy a house on the lake? You're a medical student. You don't have any money. Like, oh, a house is like $3. Like, oh, okay, cool. California, you know how expensive real estate is in California? Right? So the point is we all have our hopes and dreams set on certain things. When it comes to medical school, people get too hung up on like, I got to get in the best medical school area, in this medical school, whatever. Don't let people hype you up in the wrong way. Get into medical school, become a doctor, and then get into a residency you want, either in the area you want to be in, or again, continue to work hard and eventually work your way back to where you want to be. So if you're like, I want to be in California for forever, you know, this means go to medical school in California. You can go elsewhere, come back for residency, and then continue on your path.
Good point, because I really did I have my network here and I wanted to continue to like serve this population.
So leverage that
and,
network to get into residency, or leverage that network to really make a difference once you're a physician and come back.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with leaving the state of California and going to do your thing. With a 3.1 GPA, you'd have to improve your GPA. And like I said, I won't waste people's time.
Okay, yeah. I'll check it out.
That's like everybody's number one question. Everybody's got a low GPA because everybody screws around their first 15 years of college.
Yeah.
Okay. And students aren't taught how to study, right? Because you're never formally taught how to learn, but you're supposed to go to college. Oh my God, college is so hard. It's not hard. It's just they expect you to actually be an independent learner. And you've never learned independently. Oh my gosh, shocker. I struggle. So you got to learn how to study, and then everything works itself out.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, up next we have Shubi.
Oh, let me make one point real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
So low GPA people, the very first thing you have to do to fix your GPA is learn how to study. Your low GPA is low because you are a bad studier. If you say any other reason, you're lying to yourself. Either you don't know how to manage your time, either you know how to manage your time, but then you don't use that time wisely with proper study strategies. So if your GPA is low, the problem is you, not your school was too hard. I was distracted. That means you're easily distracted. You got to fix that. So before you go enroll in expensive math, like I see students all the time this, oh, well, you know what? My GPA sucks. I'm gonna go get a post-bac program. And they pay 50 grand for a post-bac program and they get straight B's. Do B's in a post-bac program help you? No. Because, right, so Gisela has a 3.1. So Gisela enrolls in a post-bac program and gets all B's. Oh my gosh, got through my post-bac program, all B's, amazing. Your GPA went down. You paid $50,000 to lower your GPA. So you've got to fix your studying first, and then you pick a path. But if you haven't learned how to study, what are you doing? You're just making more bad grades. Okay, sorry. Was it Suba? Shubi?
Hi, I'm Shubi, Dr.
Shubi,
P.
hello.
Yeah. So I'm an international student. I'm doing my undergrad in Chicago. So I wanted some advice as a pre-med applicant who's international regarding that.
That's a whole mixed bag. And I actually did. No, that was in my coaching group. It's a whole long thing. So when it comes to international students, an international student is not an international student. So every international student is very different. And like, so there's like, it's too complicated of a question for this session, but it would involve figuring out like where you're coming from, where your units are, what your GPA is, what the composition is. Like there's a whole lot that goes into that. And then based off that, then you would advise what's going on. The biggest obstacle for international students is funding. As an international student, depending on again, it depends on your international classification. But as an international student, for the most part, you're ineligible for federal aid.
Yeah.
So the problem then becomes that certain schools won't accept you unless you can pay cash up front because they know you won't be able to get loans. It also happens to affect you when it comes time for residency because you can't get federal funds, and residencies are federally funded if you're an international type student. So it gets very complicated. There's things you have to do. And so it's beyond the scope of this. I did a session about this in my coaching group with international students. But it's a complex question. So what I would say is this is one of those things where you have to like really put people around you who know what's up and get informed, because it is very tricky. And if you make the wrong steps, you end off somewhere really weird and not where you want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, our next question, John Castro, go ahead.
So I am a non-traditional student who first went to college, did extremely terrible because it was not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to run a martial arts school, which I actually ended up doing for 8 years. And during that time, I was like, you know what? I want to go back to school and I know what I want to do because being in this profession, have seen a lot of injuries inside and out, and I've always wanted to help. And so I decided to go back to school, have had nothing but A's except for one B that I got last semester. And I'm in my senior year at this point. How do I overcome the fact that I did such a terrible year in my first year, took 10-year gap. I'm doing as much as I possibly, or I'm studying as hard as I can. I'm actually, just had a baby here recently. So I'm juggling parent life, school, still making A's and doing that thing and prepping for the MCAT. And everything is looking good so far. How do I come off as being prepared to go into med school?
First off, congratulations on the baby.
Thank you.
Welcome to parenthood, where you always come second or third or fifth, whatever.
Yeah, I've noticed that lately.
Low on the pecking order. But what I'll say this, nobody cares about 15,000 years ago, right? So again, this is a lie that you're going to hear on forums. Oh, I was in school and I flunked out my freshman year. Actually, I'll call somebody out right now. You guys want to hear me call somebody out? No, I won't do it. I'll be kind. And by kind and considerate. I won't smash on these influencers you guys love so much. Okay. But let's put it this way. If you have one bad year, okay, if you get all F's for a year, and then you get all A's for 3 years, what roughly is your GPA? Let's say you take the same amount of classes every year, right? What roughly would be your GPA?
Well, I went to a different school, so it's a little rough.
No. Listen, guys, this is very important because people are gonna get you off track. If you have one bad year and you get all F's, then you get 3 years of straight A's. It's an average, right? So we can calculate this. Use your algebra skills. Roughly, what is your GPA?
Probably like a 3.1 or 3.2 overall.
Everybody pay attention. Do the math. That's why everyone skip algebra. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta learn calculus. That's really important. Can't do basic algebra. Freddie says F's are weighted very heavily. No, F's are equally weighted, guys. Thank you, Nina. My goodness, right? It's 4 years. Every year is equally weighted. So then all you have to do is take the total number of years and multiply by the GPA of each year. So 3 times 4 gives you 12, right? F's are worth how much? Donut. So you have 3 years of 4s, 1 year of 0. So your net average is 3. That's why people struggle on the MCAT. Algebra skills is hard. It's tough. Everybody's like, yeah, it's like 5, 6. Is that right? Like, calculate, right? It's 3. So now, okay, now we figured out the algebra. So let's do it again. You got F's for a year. Then you have 4 years of A's. What's your GPA? No, 1 year of how did our GPA go down? 1 year of F's, 4 years of A's. So we just had 1 year of F and 3 years of A's, and it was 3.0. So now if we do 1 year of F's and 4 years of A's, it now becomes 4 times 4, which is 16, 1 times 0, which is 0. So it's 16 divided by 5. It's 3.2. Okay. Does everybody see the game we're playing here?
Yes.
Okay. So if someone tells you, oh, you know, I would have gotten to medical school, but I had 1 bad year, are they telling the truth or are they lying?
Lying.
They're lying. So John, if you have had a successful career starting in martial arts school, you struggled 15,000 years ago, but you've been a straight A student for 3 years, do you really think med schools are going to care?
Probably not.
Because your GPA should be roughly, it's above 3.0, and with another year, it should be up to 3.2 plus, right? And then you do well on the MCAT, and then you have great letters of recommendation. Does anybody care?
No.
No. So again, we are all on a spectrum of our greatness. John was delayed in his greatness, right? But he got older and wiser and better, which is why, Mary, that gap year is great, because we get older and wiser and grayer. And now he's focused, and now he's got a baby, so now he's real focused. And so he's a better student. Do you think he can't make that argument to medical schools? Do you think they couldn't obviously see that on his transcript? Does everybody understand? We get it. And if you're like, well, wait a minute, 3 years of A's, 1 year of F's, and he didn't get straight F's, but let's just say he did, is only 3.0. You can get into medical school with 3.0. But I'm not going to waste everybody's time. I started to do the math. You just got to add more years. And so I tell students, anybody can get into medical school, anybody, but not everybody will. And what separates those people is that people who don't want to do the work, right? So they're not willing to do it, are not able to do the work, either because it's finances, whatever, obligations. Those are the only people who don't get into medical school, or people who just flat out quit. Lazy people. I've had students who've worked 6, 7 years post-undergrad to get into medical school. It's worth it to them. So the question becomes, for some of y'all who got low GPAs from early on, how worth it is it to you? Oh, I got to be a doctor. Well, if you got to be a doctor, make it happen. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? It's a lie. When you see people in SDN talk about their 1 year, they're full of it. They're a terrible student.
Noted.
It was just one class. That 1 F kept me out of medical school. No, you suck. That's why you didn't get into medical school. Be honest and be truthful. You're a terrible human being.
Straight up. All right, Dr. P, we're going to have one more question from our students, and then we're going to start wrapping it up. We don't want to keep it too long. All right, Ashton, are you ready
to go? Real quick, if you guys want to join my student group right now, I'm letting people in. If you search on Facebook for Cult of Greatness, you'll see our Cult of Greatness group. You have to answer the questions. Again, it's not one of those, I don't have time for people who don't have time who aren't valuable people. So when you ask to join the group, you're gonna have to answer questions. If you don't answer all the questions, you will not get in the group. And if your answers are terrible, I evaluate you critically and I reject. And I reject probably about half people who try to get in our group. It's about the going rate. So everybody understand, if you guys are enjoying this time, you guys want to be around our group and you want to be around me, join our Cult of Greatness group, come in there. There's no charge to it. It's free to come hang out with us. Just an investment in yourself, right? You got to be a worthwhile person. Otherwise you get booted from the group. We have a very high standard.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the next question. This is on behalf of Ashton. Can you please ask about medical school and how they accommodate for students who have disability? I am deaf, but I have a cochlear implant and want to see your input on this.
Nice. What's the student's name?
Ashton.
Is your computer doing, you're deaf, is your computer doing speech to text? Or should I type it? Oh, cochlear implants. You can hear, but you're legally deaf.
Yes.
I'm asking so I don't go on a very fast-paced rant, and I'm not even talking to the person who asked the question. So Ashton, can you just tell us if I talk, are you hearing me? Oh, I'm good. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yes, I am deaf, but yes, I have an occlusive implant. I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah,
but, so my biggest issues is like, how does medical school accommodate with students who have a disability?
Okay. So I mentioned I'm like the definition of a disadvantaged student, right?
Yes.
It's very important that we all understand. So it's so funny. Like, I was going to do a rant. I've been like saving like people simmer for a second before I talk about the election because it's hot right now, right? Oh God, we're like upset about it. So it's probably like tomorrow we're going to do a live about it. But everyone is like acting like the fate of the world depends on this election. And I'm like, guys, and I saw a meme that like perfectly framed what I was thinking. And I feel like Facebook is in tune to my inner thoughts because I think something and then I get a meme. And I was literally just like, these people, and I saw a meme and it was perfect. And it was like, hey guys, guess what? Regardless of who wins, Biden or Trump, 99% of your problems are still your own. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, right? And so when it comes to being a student who's either disadvantaged or disabled, right? They're different and the same. In some way, you are not the same as the people around you, right? They have an advantage over you. They are more able than you, or they are more advantaged than you. What you must understand is that nobody cares about you and no one's going to help you. And this is the frustration of disadvantaged students and disabled students. I just mentioned was it someone here with my student who just took an MCAT and got hosed on her accommodations? They violated every single line of her accommodation. And that's heartbreaking for a student who has a major disability, raised her score up, was sub 500, was up in the 514 was her highest practice exam score, was crushing it, was doing amazing. And then you get to test day and they don't give you your accommodations. I just had another student who has a disability and got a reader, was able to get a reader for the MCAT. And then the reader botched them up on test day and it plummeted his score. He was going to score in the 90-something percentile and it plummeted his score. And so what I'll say is this, do medical schools accommodate disability? Yes. But the truth is, if you are disadvantaged or you are disabled in life and in medical school and in everywhere, it is 99.9% up to you to make yourself able. So if you are deaf, for example, you are hearing impaired. So your disability comes from listening, but you don't have other disabilities with that. Does that make sense? So what you then have to do is take your disability off the table. Where your disability hurts you is in lecture. So if and I have deaf students, like deaf, right? I tell them, why the freak, right? And I have blind students. I'm like, why are you in class and you're blind? You can't see the board. What are we doing? Right? Take your disability off the table. So in your case, Ashton, you got to really beef up your study skills, but you've got to become independent where you don't need a lecture. And so what I do, because I come from a background of being a disadvantaged like student and not a great student, I teach the lowest common denominator. So what I do is I teach all my students to become completely independent of school. And the reason that's so valuable is that then in any scenario, if any variable is taken away, the teacher's bad, you don't have a tutor, you don't have the right book, you don't have this, whatever it is, you can always survive because you need nothing. It's like Survivor Man, right? Or like Naked and Afraid. Like you got a stick and your naked body. Can you live out here for 21 days? Does this make sense to everybody? So if you're a student who has a disability, I have students with disabilities who crush it, but they have to get over the fact of my disability is making it so that I can't succeed. Oh my gosh. My skin is so dark that I just can't be a doctor. I'm just too black. Oh, my blackness is holding me back. And I just I want to push their forehead. Like, wake up. Okay. If you have a disability, it's incumbent upon you that you recognize I am disabled. Stop trying to act like, oh, I'm just like everybody else. No, you're disabled. So because of that, now work strategically to find a solution to your problem. So for you, Ashton, what I would say is become the type of student who doesn't need lecture. And the way to not need lecture is to become an incredible reader. Right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
all my students, I teach all my students not to go to lecture. That's like rule number one of being a great student is not to ever go to lecture. It's a waste of your time. Okay. So Ashton, that would be my advice to you is you have to get very good at studying and becoming independent and getting away from lecture, getting away from needing anyone to talk to you, like be a solo ranger. And so one of the things that happened to me in medical school is, right, like I recognize I'm not on the same level naturally as my classmates. I went to Stanford. People are insane. I was not nearly as naturally gifted as my classmates. So I recognized I shall not be pulled into doing what you guys are doing. So I never went to lecture. I didn't go to study groups. I didn't go to whatever because I knew what they were doing wasn't going to work for me. And I went about it my own way. And the end result, I graduated top 5% of my class, top 5% step one score. Crushed it. Never having gone to class, got all like whatever. Because I made the conscious decision to say, listen, I'm not the same as them. So I got to do it my way and make sure that I'm doing everything that's right for me to be my best. So Ashton, that would be my advice to you. Anybody else who's disabled, recognize you're disabled. Suck it up, acknowledge it. Stop saying, treat me just like everyone else. No, you're different. So lean into it and stop trying to be like other people and follow them and recognize how to work around your disability. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what I wanted to do is change in medical school, well, in healthcare society, is that like they don't have a lot of interpreters because they don't accommodate with deaf patients. So I want to bring that to the table and say, well, I'm deaf. I have ocular implant. I can hear, I can talk, and I know American Sign Language, and I want to bring that to the table and say, this is what I can do.
Nice.
And
awesome. Yeah, 100%. The student I just mentioned who just had the MCAT failure because their reader wasn't whatever, he actually does research. He's going to be an ND PhD. He does research in learning disabilities and in disabled accommodations throughout healthcare. And the fact that, yes, there's accommodations, but they're not really effective. So even like things like having a sign language translator, they're not always available, right? And not all sign language is, this is kind of weird to say, not all sign language is the same. You know, like that's a weird thing to say, but it's like, so there's all kind of layers to accommodation. So the whole point is you got to get independent, and it's possible, guys. I'm telling you, I've had students who run the entire spectrum and just absolutely, people are flabbergasted. I'm like, don't be flabbergasted. We're just better than you. Yeah, we were worse than you, but now we're better than you. So deal with it. Right? People used to laugh at me in popcorn reading. They used to popcorn back and forth right to me to have me read because I don't read well. Like I was like an awful, terrible. I couldn't pronounce the words. I couldn't get it out. Like it was a wreck. And they used to just, my misery made them so happy. But then I got around it and I became a super reader. Now I read still slow-ish, but I read circles around everybody. That's my preferred modality is actually reading. But it's about putting things in place there. All right, did I answer your question? I hope that was answer your question. But yeah, Ashton, rock on, get it done. It's absolutely 1,000% possible, but you got to work differently.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. P, we do not want to keep you here for too long. We understand that you got, lots of stuff to do. So at this time, I just want to ask you if you have any final advice, final words for our students.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird shadowing session. We didn't talk anything about anesthesia. but I'll say this. Words for the road. I'll say 3 things. First thing I'll say is anesthesia is amazing. It's amazing. It's incredible. But we earn our pay. It's very stressful. We're the only doctors that administer medications. That's the first and foremost thing. No one else gives medications. No other physician. Okay. The second thing is that we are truly an acute care specialty. So it's very stressful. And this is going to be, again, sound kind of crazy. After my intern year, I was like, I could be a hospitalist today. And the reason I said that is because as a hospitalist, as a clinic, like you work in a clinic doing primary care, you have time, like, this patient's feeling this. Let me go on the computer and look up their symptoms. So that's how medical students survive clerkships, right? They hear something and they go look it up. So if you're not in an acute care specialty, you can go look things up. Does that make sense? In anesthesia, you have to have everything not only committed to memory, viral, you have to retain it in such a way that you can apply it in the moment quickly. And so because of that, you have to be very diligent about your training. And then you also have to be able to be a person who can keep calm under pressure and really, really deliver what your knowledge base is. Okay. So I'm sorry. I'm not picking on Viral. She knows what's up. Right. But that's part of it. So anesthesia is an amazing specialty. It's very high stress if you don't like critical situations. I love critical situations. So it's not stressful to me, but it is kind of like, there's moments where you're like, woo, that was really threading the line there. That was iffy for a second there. I almost ran out of here crying, right? Like that kind of thing. That's the first thing I'll say. Anesthesia is amazing. Second thing is pick a career. You guys are pre-meds. Everybody thinks they got to figure out their career. Like you don't have to figure out what you want to do in medicine. Just know that medicine's right for you. Do you like the hospital? It smells bad. People are ornery. It's dark and dimly lit in a lot of places. Like, do you like that? Right? Do you like that vibe? Like where you look around, everybody's like bloodshot eyes. Do you like being around zombies? If you do, being in healthcare is like for you. And then you can figure out what specialty later on. That's the first thing. So those are the things I'll say about that. In terms of you guys as pre-meds, like as we were just talking about, key takeaways. Stay off SDN, one. Second thing is be yourself. Be proud of yourself, guys. Like I said, I know some of you guys maybe I've offended. I'm sorry, not sorry, because I'm very proud of who I've become and I've built every single brick of my tower. And for you guys who feel like I have no tower, put a brick together today. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, don't worry about where you are right now. Anybody get to medical school. It's not that hard. It's very simple and straightforward. The problem is executing and doing the work, right? We all know what it takes to get A's roughly. But it's like, how do I get to that destination? Like, how do I get all the material in my mind, into stick, and I can apply it? Like, that's the iffy part. So take your time and start developing yourselves. Stop worrying about, clearly we didn't pay attention to algebra class, but stop paying attention to calculus and whatever. Pay attention to yourselves. Like, what do you need to work on? Because some of y'all are flawed individuals. How can you make yourself a better person? And put yourself in a position where you can be proud of yourself and the career you can create. And people want to believe in you. Like, I'm incredible because I've focused on making myself incredible. And what we do with my students, it's cult of greatness. Why? Because it's like, okay, what do you want to be great at? Okay, let's work on that and mold you to that, and let's support that. So don't let anybody try to change you. That's why I say I'm anti-SDN, because it's a bunch of clone hack losers. And what you really want to find are people who are real life people, have real life faces, who care about you and want to see you succeed. And sometimes it starts with just you. Maybe it's your mom, right? And a lot of times moms don't understand. So maybe it's like some weird other friend at school. You guys are the two weirdos together. Be weird together and go figure it out. All right. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pinesett. That was amazing. I would love to direct my students over now to our wrap-up presentation. So to all of my students, don't forget to comment on this talk. If any of today's session resonated with you, if you have any big takeaways, which I bet you guys do, please leave some feedback. We love to hear it, and you might get featured in the future. So that's always fun. And then just some announcements.
Did I say that? Sorry. Can I interrupt for 1 second? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, everybody, please come join our group, come hang out, come check out the website, all that stuff. Like, follow me on social media, and all that stuff. And thank you guys so much. If you guys enjoyed tonight, tell a friend that, you know, Dr. Pines is kind of cool. You should go talk to him. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nina. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. This is awesome. You guys are doing this for students. Put us together. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, also we have our student team. We are a student-based, student-led team. If you are interested in joining, we are a fairly new program. We launched about 2 months ago. So you guys can be a part of the start of this program. So that's amazing. And if you guys do not have the time commitment, if you're too busy studying for the MCAT, if you're too busy, I don't know, life in general, that's totally fine. We also have volunteer opportunities for you all. It is really great. It is completely 100% remote, completely 100% on your own time. You can get as many or as little hours as you want. You pick your hours, you pick your schedule, and you just do it. So you can find all this information on our website, www.prehealthshadowing.com. And I have a challenge for you all today. Please navigate over to Instagram. You can scan the barcode on the right. We have our promotion post for Dr. Andre Pinesett. If you guys are able to spell his last name letter by letter, we will pick a student who will be the spotlight student of the session. Also, don't forget to head over to his Instagram page also and show some love. Give him a follow. I have been tuning into some of the lives on Instagram lives, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. So don't forget to always check in with that. It's great. It's informal shadowing. Our next shadowing session, I'm so sorry, this is incorrect. Our shadowing session is next Friday, which is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be having a veterinary oral surgeon, so please check in for that. And if you guys would like to get your certificate showing that you participated in today's shadowing session, this is how you do so. You're going to head over to our website and go to Dr. Pinesett's speakers page. To the right of his face, you will see take this course. It is completely free for all of you students to join and take the quiz. You will have 15 minutes once you get to the quiz to complete it. You must pass with a score of 70% or higher to be eligible to receive your certificate. Once you receive your certificate, you must go back to hit finish course once you take your quiz and pass it. If you do not hit finish course, you will not receive your certificate. So please ensure that you've done this. And then once you do that, it's downloadable immediately, and you can always find it in your profile under the certificates tab. If you guys have any questions about this or experience any issues, feel free to reach out to us at info@prehealthshadowing.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And that concludes our 14th shadowing session. I thank you all for joining us today and wish you luck on your journeys. Have a great evening.